Most people know Benjamin Franklin as the inventor, the statesman, the scientist, who tamed lightning with a kite and key. But what if I told you that behind the carefully polished public image was a man whose private life, secret missions, and scandalous adventures painted a far more complicated picture? I'm Arthur, and today we're diving into the double life of Benjamin Franklin, a life filled with intrigue, charm, and controversy. Franklin was a man of astonishing talents. He helped draft foundational documents, published witty essays, and conducted experiments that changed the way people saw the natural world. Yet away from the lecture halls and political chambers, Franklin led a personal life that shocked even his contemporaries. Letters, diaries, and testimony reveal a man who thrived on risk, flirted with danger, and cultivated secrets as carefully as he cultivated inventions. Consider his role as a diplomat. While representing his nation abroad, Franklin developed a reputation for being as charming in salons as he was persuasive in negotiations. Aristocrats and noblewomen adored him, and he played into the image of the witty, flirtatious American sage. His correspondence is peppered with affectionate words, playful banter, and sometimes scandalous undertones. Was this merely performance to gain influence, or did Franklin truly indulge in the affections and passions his reputation suggests? But the reality behind Franklin's private life becomes even more fascinating when we look closer. He fathered an illegitimate son, William, whom he later raised while never publicly naming the mother. This alone was controversial in his era, but Franklin's relationships did not end there. Throughout his life, he surrounded himself with intelligent, ambitious women who blurred the lines between muse, confidant, and lover. Their letters still survive, offering a glimpse into the emotional and often passionate world that Franklin kept hidden from the public eye. And then there were his covert activities. Franklin did not only live in the world of science and politics, he lived in the shadows as well. As postmaster, he quietly intercepted mail to gather intelligence. In Europe, he cultivated networks of informants and sympathizers, becoming not just a diplomat, but a spymaster. His wit and charm made him appear harmless, yet those who underestimated him often learned he was pulling invisible strings. Franklin's double life meant that, while he appeared to be writing essays about electricity, he might also have been engineering alliances in dimly lit back rooms. What makes Franklin's story even more remarkable is how he managed to balance these two lives. To the public, he was a philosopher, an inventor, a founding father. To those close to him, he was unpredictable, sometimes indulgent, sometimes calculating, sometimes dangerously unconventional. The contrast between these two identities makes Franklin one of history's most intriguing figures. But the truth behind Franklin's double life might surprise you even more, because the scandals he courted were not always accidents. Some of them were carefully cultivated, tools he used to extend his influence and reinforce his legend. The question is, how much of Franklin's scandalous reputation was indulgence, and how much was deliberate strategy? Franklin's appetite for intrigue and adventure only deepened with age. Far from a quiet elder statesman, he embraced the role of a cultural celebrity. In Paris, where he served as a diplomat, his arrival sparked a fascination. Crowds gathered to glimpse the American envoy in his simple fur cap, a deliberate choice that contrasted sharply with the powdered wigs of European courts. The cap became a symbol, rustic, authentic, and cunningly exotic. Women adored him, poets praised him, satirists mocked him. But Franklin understood the power of image, and he wielded it as carefully as he wielded a pen. Behind this theatrical persona, however, his life remained a tangle of secrets and desires. Franklin's letters to female admirers reveal a man who blurred the line between diplomacy and seduction. His relationships with women like Madame Brillon and Madame Helvetius became the stuff of whispered scandal. To some, these liaisons were harmless flirtations, products of French salon culture. To others, they hinted at deeper entanglements, affairs that crossed both emotional and physical boundaries. Was Franklin merely playing a role to win favor in courtly circles? Or was he indulging in passions that defied the restraint expected of a statesman? Even more provocative was Franklin's role in the shadow world of espionage. As postmaster in the colonies, he had already perfected the art of reading other people's mail. In France, his charm disguised his ability to weave networks of spies, informants, and sympathizers. Documents suggest he received intelligence about troop movements, intercepted coded messages, and quietly directed channels of influence that would change the course of alliances. Franklin's double life as a scientist and spy reveals a mind not only curious about electricity and print, but equally skilled in the invisible currents of human ambition. And what of his family life? The contradictions continued there as well. His illegitimate son William, once close to him, became a loyalist during the American Revolution, creating a rift so deep that father and son never reconciled. Franklin, who preached liberty, found himself estranged from his own blood. Meanwhile, he doted on his illegitimate grandson, Temple, raising him almost as a surrogate son, while using him as an aide in Europe. These fractured loyalties mirrored the fractured identity of Franklin himself, a man divided between public virtue and private contradiction. But perhaps the greatest secret of Franklin's double life lies in the way he cultivated scandal itself. Rather than shrink from controversy, he seemed to embrace it, weaving it into the myth of Benjamin Franklin. His flirtations reinforced his image as a charming rogue. His intelligence work enhanced his reputation as a cunning strategist. His writings, often sly and humorous, allowed him to mock prudishness while disguising sharp commentary on power and morality. He knew that to stay relevant, he had to remain unpredictable. The truth behind Franklin's story is not one of hypocrisy, but of complexity. He embodied both wisdom and indulgence, restraint and risk, invention and intrigue. He could be earnest and playful, loyal and ruthless, scientific and scandalous. This tension gave him power. It allowed him to move in courts and taverns, in laboratories and salons, in the daylight of history and the shadows of secrecy. So when we think of Franklin as the man who tamed lightning, we should also remember the man who tamed perception. His double life wasn't merely a flaw, it was his greatest invention. And perhaps that is why his legacy endures, not as a saintly founder, but as a living paradox. Because the truth behind Benjamin Franklin is this: he was never just one man, he was many. And that, more than any experiment or document, may be his most lasting achievement.